So instead of defining evolution, I'm going to define natural selection, which I think will do Jeremiah Humble a great deal in understanding what evolution is. I think most people, which I will place one of those little red bubbly thingies to show you where to skip this short reading, whatever. Natural selection, the weeding out of organisms by biological process, without deliberate or directed human intervention, is natural selection. Organisms less suited to an environment, or on average, perish, and consequently do not pass their genes to subsequent generations. Natural selection is an average event. The tendency for the less suited to die, thereby fail to reproduce. It is a process of elimination. The other side of that evolutionary coin is that organisms with traits serving them well fare better, tend to survive, and pass along favorable traits. This tendency is not a matter of luck. Those surviving do better than those perishing because of how well their traits do or do not serve them in challenging environments. Formerly, natural selection is non-random, simply a happy accident. I wouldn't necessarily call it happy. But instead of, the book doesn't say that, I do, but instead of consequence, a consequence of active calling process. So basically, which I think that's fairly self-explanatory, basically, if it doesn't do good, it dies. And that's the bare process of evolution and how we got here. So basically, your hypothesis of the moss man or the swamp man coming out of goo isn't quite how it happened. It's a very slow process that took roughly 4.2 billion years. So that's that. I guess I'll move on.
Eventually a Homo sapien, and that's what they believe now. That makes a lot of sense to me. How somebody can believe something so ludicrous and so really asinine and crazy if they're handicapped, if they have brain damage.
What I find bizarre about him saying that this is ludicrous is that the majority of Nobel Prize winners and the majority of a good portion of the medical sciences actually used the theory of evolution and natural selection to, for example, just as an example, anyone who thinks that evolution's never done anything good for any sort of technology or science needs to look at flu vaccines, because what doctors and evolutionary biologists try to do is look at the way flu vaccines are now, look at our immunities and how our immunities are working, and try to develop a vaccine before the next flu strikes. In fact, they have been successful. So to say, consequently, that you have to be brain damaged to believe it, I don't see how you can say that, considering that if brain damage, if if one being brain damaged brings about a cure to disease, I suppose it really wasn't damage ultimately. I mean, it's not like a cure. It's not like a remedy. It's literally a cure. Well, I suppose in a way it could be viewed as a remedy if you took it from just the right angle, but that's only because you have to basically make yourself sick to get better or keep yourself from dying. But whatever, that's close enough to a cure.
And I was just wondering what some of you other believers out there, Christians and maybe even Muslims, thought about this. Maybe these atheists are actually, a majority of them are actually retarded and handicapped, and that's why, according to this book and, the scientific theories and whatnot, that there's this part of the brain. Of course, the author of the book, we can't put him in that category because he actually said in the interview that he actually felt like he was having a religious experience where
everybody feels that exact same religious experience. The only difference is that everybody can feel, I should say, that exact same religious experience. And anyone who doesn't feel that religious experience possibly just doesn't know what it feels like. Having been religious, I know exactly what religious experiences feel like. And if you think a religious experience feels good, wait until you discover something with science. You'll feel 100 times better.
He felt like God was trying to connect with him, and he was connecting with God, and he said in his own words, I drew back away from that. And of course, you can probably go on Coast to Coast AM and get the download of the show for a little bit of money, maybe 99 cents or something, I don't know.
Handicapped and retarded are two different things. This is something that I'd like to point out because I just now noticed it. Handicapped person is someone, for example, who's missing an arm and has no mental malfunction. Or they may have a mental malfunction, but it only prevents them from actually doing things. Someone who is retarded is someone who is physically or mentally incapable of doing something. So you should probably research your definitions, because if someone is merely handicapped, what you're saying is that they can do everything you can do, minus that it will put obstacles in their life. And if you think this is the case, which you seem to, you need to look at countries who are predominantly non-believers, because they do a hell of a lot better than most other countries, not to mention the fact that most people who are non-believers, who aren't very avid and outspoken about it, don't have any sort of hindrance, or just simply the fact that there are more believers of in any given sort of religion than non-believers in prisons. So if it's a handicap, I'd really like to know, or if it's retardation, I'd really like to know how, or if it's a handicap, I would also like to know how. But you seem to be pushing that it is in fact a retardation, which doesn't make any damn sense.
Brain damage so that they can't believe in God. It's just, it's something that to them is just absolutely totally crazy to believe in, a creator. And I would just wonder, what would, if this is true and they are brain damaged, I wonder what would be the outcome for somebody that on someone like that on the day of judgment. And I guess it kind of helps me to have a little bit more grace when I'm dealing with some of these atheists out here, especially the ones that, deconverted, maybe they got in a car accident or something and smashed their frontal lobe on their steering wheel. And now they don't.
If someone smashed their frontal lobe on the steering wheel of a car, and it literally smashed their frontal lobe, it's more than likely that they would be little more than, they probably wouldn't even be able to live, to be quite honest. Yeah, I'm not even going to.
Believe in God anymore because they damaged the God part of their brain. But, that is kind of interesting. How should we deal? How should we work with people like this?
Work with people like what? I don't quite know what you mean. Work with people. I don't get it. Work with people in what way? That doesn't make any sense. That's like saying, hey, look, that guy flips burgers, therefore he must be handicapped. How are we going to deal with this? It doesn't make any sense.
Should we have a lot more grace if they really are handicapped and retarded, and it's really hard for them to grasp the things that we talk about that, make so much sense to those who are not handicapped and not retarded and really have all their mental faculties together. But I'd be interested to know what everybody out there thinks about this, and if you've read the book and what you thought about the book, and if you think maybe atheists possibly are retarded, you could put a comment down here in the comment section and tell me what you think, or click over here and subscribe, or leave a comment on my page. Do you think atheists are retarded, or do you think that they are, like the author of the book, just knowingly denying their creator and just outright saying basically that they don't need the God that gave them life and everything that they experienced?
I have one question, and one question only. There are several people in the world who don't believe like you do, regardless of what you believe. Probably millions of these people. Are you suggesting that these people are denying the exact same creator that any other atheist would be? I mean, from what you're suggesting, you either believe in all gods, or you don't seem to realize that to be an atheist, one believes in any individual god, or because I don't get that, everyone's an atheist who doesn't accept all gods as real, which is pretty much everybody on the face of the planet. And he just goes on to babble about subscribe, which only for about another few seconds. Anyway, yeah, that's all.